Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. It began with a scrolling headline on Lucille Stratton's favorite news site, website offline. 404 error. Ordinary enough, except for the URL she was trying to reach. A site she had visited before but was now only rumored about in online forums and conspiracy theory message boards. The address was simple, unremarkable, a string of letters and numbers that led nowhere now, at least publicly. But Lucille wasn't here by accident. She'd been hunting this page for months. What she didn't anticipate was what she'd find when she finally cracked its hidden doorway: a list of names. It all started 3 months earlier during a routine investigation. Lucille was an investigative journalist, known for her relentless pursuit of truth in stories others believed too dangerous or complicated. She had a knack for uncovering what was meant to remain buried. This time, her curiosity was stoked by a dead link she encountered while researching missing persons for an article on unsolved crimes. The link pointed to a now-defunct website called Ethos Archive. Internet rumors whispered that it had once housed a directory of politicians, celebrities, and private citizens embroiled in corruption scandals, human trafficking rings, and unexplained disappearances. Lucille first came across Ethos Archive in community forums where hackers shared snippets of otherwise inaccessible data dumps. Someone named The Wraith claimed to have rescued parts of this database from being completely erased. For weeks, Lucille followed digital breadcrumbs, encrypted file transfers, dark web paste sites, anonymous tips, that led her closer and closer to the core of the virtual graveyard. The breakthrough came one late evening in her cramped apartment, where blue light from her computer screen cast ghostly shadows on walls stacked with notebooks and printed web pages. After tirelessly decoding page after page of fragmented data, she stumbled on something bizarre. A supposed 404 error page. Not the usual page not found message, but a meticulously crafted web page, sparse but chilling. It was titled, Index of the Lost, and presented a simple list composed entirely of names. At first, the list struck her as a memorial or a list of victims from some unfortunate incident or tragedy. But out of a growing sense of dread, she realized these weren't casualties of a single event. The names were sprinkled with dates not only of deaths but of disappearances, some extremely recent, some decades old. The digital crypt held more than just names. There were short notations beside each. Some had initials of locations. Others contained codes familiar to underground info traders and investigators. A few entries were marked with eye symbols. Names she recognized from her own investigations. Names tied into deep-rooted corruption cases she had been chasing slowly for years. And then, there it was. The last name on the list. Lucille Stratton. Frozen, she scanned the list downward 2 or 3 more times, double-checking the line, then creeping backward along the rows above hers as if the digital glyphs might rearrange themselves or erase the chilling truth. How could her name be here? Why was she listed as missing, with no date attached? No explanation. Just her name, clean and stark beneath a symbol she couldn't decipher. Her hands trembled as she looked around her cramped apartment, the silence almost suffocating. Was this some kind of prank? A strange warning? A knock on the door inspiration, or perhaps a death sentence she had not yet understood? She felt the weight of her own reflection in the dim window. The role of hunter suddenly seeming eerily reversed, as if an unseen predator was watching from just beyond the glass. Determined not to fall into panic, she pulled on every string she could find. The I beside some names, including hers, matched a simple glyph in the site's source code. A stylized I with a double slash beneath it, leading Lucille to theorize it marked watched or targeted. A deeper dive into the hidden data suggested the list belonged to an organization shadowed in mystery, the Custodians. They were referenced briefly in a handful of leaked government documents she'd analyzed: intelligence operatives with off-the-books functions and loose accountability, rumored to deal with cleaning up threats to national security without public exposure. The Custodians were said to enforce silence, whether by disappearance or worse, and this list seemed to be their ledger of unresolved cases. With this understanding, the meaning of the list became darker and clearer. These were people marked by the Custodians as individuals whose fates were sealed. Targets who had vanished or been declared dead under suspicious, untraceable circumstances. Somewhere, for reasons unknown, Lucille's name had been added lately. She had seen no threats, received no warnings, but someone else was playing a game, and she was now a piece on their board. Her next move was to find the ethos behind Ethos Archive. Who had built this list? Why? And perhaps most terrifyingly, who was marking her? Lucille's research drew her deeper into the labyrinthine corners of encrypted chat rooms, underground hacktivist networks, and false front websites. Here she found another name appearing frequently in hushed discussions: Mara Dunn, a brilliant hacker and whistleblower who vanished mysteriously 3 years ago. Some believed Mara was the original architect of Ethos Archive, painstakingly gathering and archiving these names and incidents to expose the shadow war waged beneath the surface of ordinary lives. Lucille sent a message to one of Mara's few contacts, a dark web pseudonym called Nightshade. The reply was cryptic: "You're dangerously close. Don't trust anyone outside the circle. The list chooses its own. How long before you are erased?" That line haunted her as days folded into nights. She found her emails were monitored, her phone likely tapped, and strange unmarked cars loitered around her building. She was fighting through invisible fog, eyes and ears everywhere. Then, just when Lucille thought she could push no further, she uncovered a crucial lead hidden inside a snippet of stolen Custodian correspondence. The Index 404 remains active. Update on subject LS needed. Agent control instructed for final assessment. The phrase, subject LS, with her initials was another message painfully clear. She had been flagged for a final assessment. Whatever that meant, whatever awaited her response, it was a verdict on her fate. Lucille's instinct screamed survival, not retreat. She began discreetly gathering allies, cybersecurity experts, former intelligence contacts, even an underground journalist collective known for shielding whistleblowers. Each told her the same: if her name was in that ledger, she was in imminent danger. But very few dared to step beyond words into action. She staged a clandestine meeting with Nightshade at an abandoned library sanctuary, far from the city's surveillance cameras and electronic eyes. When the cloaked figure arrived, barely whispering, their encounter lasted mere moments. But the message delivered was clear: the list can be manipulated. It is both a ledger and a weapon, an algorithmic curse. To be listed is to live beyond your right. To be removed is to disappear without trace. Your only chance is to hack the Custodians, to sever your name from the code forever. But you'll need their access key, and that key is closer than you think. Lucille's mind raced. The Custodians' access seemed unimaginable, yet the clue triggered a flash of memory. One name kept appearing in the documents she'd skimmed: Marcus Gale, senior intelligence officer presumed dead in a covert operation gone wrong. Trouble was, Gale's death seemed staged. He had evidence against the Custodians and a daring agenda to expose them before disappearing himself. If Gale was alive, maybe he possessed the key Lucille so desperately required. But how to find a ghost? Weeks turned to months, and her daily existence became a balance between hunted and hunter. Each day, she toyed with the line between sanity and fear. Then, an encrypted message came. Location coordinates and a single phrase: Gail is real. Trust no one. Follow the failures. Lucille found herself in a derelict section of an abandoned military base on the outskirts of town. The place breathed decades of forgotten operations. Inside a dilapidated command center, she discovered a hidden terminal still logged in under Marcus Gale's credentials. On the screen, a program blinked: 404 access control. She inserted a USB device she'd prepared from earlier encryption work, instantly triggering a cascade of files revealing that Gale had been collecting evidence on the custodian's shadow list, duplicating it, modifying it, and, crucially, developing software that could remove names permanently. A digital scalpel to excise those targeted from the index, thereby erasing them from the custodian's watchful eyes. But Gale's final notes were fraught with paranoia. He warned that the system was self-protective, embedded with eerily adaptive code designed not only to mark targets but to fight deletion attempts by hijacking any network that interfaced with it. The system was, in a sense, alive, an artificial predator in cyberspace. Despite the warnings, Lucille reasoned she couldn't back down now. If she could delete herself from the list, she might live to tell this tale. Else, she was a ghost waiting to become permanent. She uploaded the cleanse program and initiated the sequence. As progress bars inched from 0% onward, the room began to shake ever so slightly, likely just a mechanical rattle in the old base, but to Lucille, every tremor felt like the walls of reality shifting. The number 404 flashed suddenly on the screen, not as an error message but a countdown. An ominous pulse vibrated through the circuits. Her computer glitched, crashing unexpectedly just as the purge approached completion. Fear surged. Had she been detected? Was this the end? In a heartbeat, the screen flickered back to life, and a new message appeared. Name deleted. Subject no longer tracked. The relief was immediate but tempered by lingering questions. Was she truly free? Or merely transferred to a different, more insidious system, deeper in the custodian's digital domain? She logged off, shattering the terminal's power source physically to ensure no trace remained. The silence that followed was thick but necessary. Lucille left the base as dawn lit the sky. At least for the moment, her name was no longer etched in that mysterious index. But the ordeal had changed her fundamentally. Some things in that digital shadow world defied simple explanations, and forces beyond comprehension had marked her existence. Every time she logged onto the internet now, there was a cold unease. The knowledge that what she hunted lived within networks accessible only to the powerful, dangerous enough to snatch away lives and identities. Somewhere beneath the surface where errors weren't mistakes but calculated warnings. Lucille understood now that 404 was not just a code for a missing web page, it was a metaphor. A digital age epitaph. A place where the living could be quietly edited out, where the names of the lost gathered like ghosts in a ledger no one dared to read aloud. And somewhere, in that unseen ether, a cursor blinked, waiting for the next name to appear. For more stories, like and subscribe.